Check this out, Beast Simulator here, bringing you another Commander deck tech, and today we are looking at Lord of the Nazgul. We're in the Dimir colors, and this is a very fun Lord of the Rings themed type build, where we're going to utilize the ring tempting us mechanic in probably the best way possible. With the Lord of the Nazgul, he's going to give all your Wraith creatures protection from ring bearers. Anytime we cast an instant or sorcery, we get to create a 3/3 black Wraith creature token. And then if we control 9 or more Wraiths total, all our Wraiths will have base power and toughness of 9. So we're going to create a whole bunch of Wraith tokens, make them really, really big, and hopefully win the game that way, while having some kind of a Dimir control type strategy as well. But with the ring tempting us, this is going to be our main focus. And the ring tempting us, every time this happens, our very first iteration, our ring bearer, which is just a creature that we choose to become the ring bearer, will become a legendary creature, and creatures cannot be blocked by the ring bearer that have greater power than our ring bearer. And then if the ring will tempt us again, we get to gain another ability. Whenever our ring bearer attacks, we get to draw a card, then discard. And then whenever our ring bearer becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller has to sacrifice that creature at the end of combat. And then finally, anytime our ring bearer deals combat damage to a player, each opponent will lose 3 life. So, let's get right into this. Because our commander is the Lord of the Nazgul, first up, we have Nazgul. A deck can have up to 9 cards named Nazgul, and we are running all 9 copies of Nazgul. This is a 1/2 Wraith Knight with Death Touch, and anytime a Nazgul enters the battlefield, the ring will tempt us. And anytime the ring tempts us, we get to put a +1 counter on each Wraith we control. Next, we have Nazumi Grave Robber. We're going to do a very good job at controlling our opponent's graveyard. Let's put into those graveyards, and if we can get any value by removing cards from that graveyard or possibly stealing creatures and having them on our battlefield. We can pay a colorless and a black. We can exile target card from a opponent's graveyard, and then if there are no cards in that graveyard, we get to flip Nazumi Grave Robber. He'll flip into Night Eyes the Desecrator. This is a 4/2 rat wizard with a really cool activated ability. For 4 generic and 1 black, we can put target creature from any graveyard on the battlefield under our control. Now we have probably my favorite Wraith, besides the Nazgul, is Witch King of Angmar. This is a 5/3 with flying, and whenever one or more creatures deal combat damage to us, each opponent has to sacrifice that creature that dealt that damage to us, and then the ring will tempt us. We can also discard a card, and then Witch King of Angmar will gain indestructible until the end of turn, then we tap it. Next, we have Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. This has flash, so we can cast it as an instant, and he'll allow us to cast sorcery spells as though they had flash, kind of like Teferi. And whenever the ring tempts us, we can choose another creature other than Gandalf to become the ring bearer. Then we get to draw a card. Of course, we have Street Wraith. This is a 3/4 with Swamp Walk, but if we don't need it, we can cycle this by paying 2 life, discarding this, then we get to draw a card. Now we have Phyrexian Metamorph. We're going to have this enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or creature that's on the battlefield, except it'll be an artifact in addition to its other types. Now we have Archmage Emeritus. Because we are playing a decent amount of instants and sorceries, anytime we cast those or copy a spell, we get to draw a card. Now we have Muldrifter. He's a fun one. He's a 2/2 flyer. When he enters the battlefield, we get to draw 2 cards. He does have an alternate casting cost called Evoke, where for this cost, he'll enter the battlefield, then trigger, then you have to sacrifice it. Of course, we have Spark Double. We're going to have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature or planeswalker we control, but it'll enter the battlefield with an additional +1 counter on it. If it was a planeswalker, it'll enter with an additional loyalty counter. Now we have Troll of Khazad-dûm. This is a 6/5 and cannot be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So if we don't need them until later on, We can pay 1 generic mana, discard this, and search our library for any swamp card and put that into our hand. Now we have a fun one. We have Grey Merchant of Asphodel, also known as Gary. This is a 2/4 zombie. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent will lose X life, where X is our total devotion to black, and then we gain all that life that was lost. This is going to be a very good way to end the game very quickly when we've developed a very large board and we have a lot of devotion to make sure our opponents lose as much life as possible. Okay, let's get into the instance. Most of these are just ways to draw cards, deal with our opponent's stuff, or just be straight counter spells. Of course, we have Dark Ritual, because anytime you play black, there's nothing wrong with getting 3 black mana. Now we have Brainstorm. We're going to draw 3 cards, then put 2 from our hand back on top of our library in any order. We have Opt. We're going to scry 1, then draw a card. We have Impulse. We get to look at the top 4 cards of our library, put 1 of them into our hand, and the rest on the bottom, then we get to shuffle. Now we have Anticipate. We get to look at the top 3 cards of our library, put 1 of them into our hand, and the rest on the bottom. Now we have Frantic Search. We're going to draw 2 cards, then discard 2, then untap 3 lands. Now we have a whole bunch of counter spells. Of course, we have Counterspell, Arcane Denial. Now we have a fun one. We have Muddle the Mixture. This will counter an instant or sorcery, but it has Transmute. So for 1 generic and 2 blue, we can discard this and search our library for any card that has mana cost 2. Of course, we have good old Negate. Sometimes you just need to counter a non-creature spell. Now we have Dissipate. This is like a better cancel. We're going to counter target spell, and if that spell is countered, it'll be exiled instead. Now we have Saruman's Trickery. This is a counter spell, but also we get to amass Orcs 1. We get to create a Orc token that we put a +1 counter on. Now we have Capsize. This is going to be a very good way to deal with any permanent that's giving you a lot of issues, but it has buyback. For 1 generic and 2 blue, you can cast it normally, but if you pay 6 total mana, we get to return this spell back to our hand when we cast it. Now to deal with our opponent's creatures, we have Pongify. We're going to destroy target creature, and then its controller will create a 3/3 green ape token. Now we have Nasty End. This has an additional cost when we cast it. We do have to sacrifice a creature. We're going to draw 2 cards, and if the sacrificed creature happened to be legendary, such as a Ring Bearer, we get to draw 3 cards instead. Of course, we have Cyclonic Rift. We're going to return target non-land permanent we don't control, and if we pay its overload cost, we're going to return each non-land permanent we don't control. Now we have Bitter Triumph. As an additional cost, we either have to discard a card or pay 3 life, but we're going to destroy target creature or planeswalker. Now we got a fun one. We have Afara's Dispersal. We're going to return target creature back to its owner's hand, then we get to Surveil 2. We get to look at the top 2 cards of our library and choose to leave that card on top or put it into our graveyard. This spell will cost 2 colors less to cast if it happens to target a attacking creature. So we can use this offensively and defensively. We can protect a creature that we control or deal with one of our opponent's creatures that's attacking us. Okay, let's get into the sorceries. Most of these are just going to deal with our opponent's stuff or help us get to the spells that we need. First up, we have Birthday Escape. We're going to draw a card, then the ring will tempt us. Now we have Claim the Precious. We get to destroy target creature, and the ring will tempt us. Now we have Ring Sight. The ring will tempt us, then we search our library for a card that shares a color with a legendary creature we control, and we get to put it into our hand. So if we have our commander, this is kind of like a demonic tutor. Of course, we have Ponder. We're going to look at the top 3 cards of our library, put them back in any order. If we still don't like it, we can shuffle, then we get to draw a card. Now we have Preordain. We get to scry 2, then draw a card. Serum Visions. We get to draw a card, then we scry 2. Now we have Compulsive Research. We get to draw 3 cards, then we discard 2 unless we discarded a land. Now we have Distant Melody. We're going to choose a creature type, and we get to draw a card for each permanent that we control of that type. Of course, we're going to choose Wraith. Now we have Stock Up. We get to look at the top 5 cards of our library, put 2 of them into our hand and the rest on the bottom. Just in case we need to draw as many cards as possible, we have Windfall. Each player will discard their hand, and then we get to draw cards equal to the greatest number of cards that were discarded this way. Now we have Lorien Revealed. For 5 mana, we get to draw 3 cards, or if we don't need this, we can island cycle it for 1 generic mana. We discard this, then we search for any island card and put that into our hand. Now we have some removal spells. We have Blood on the Snow. All of our basic lands happen to be snow for this reason. We can destroy all creatures, destroy all planeswalkers. Then we get to return a creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the total number of snow mana that was used to cast Blood on the Snow. Of course, we have Damnation. We're going to destroy all creatures. They cannot be regenerated. Now we have Villainous Wrath. Target opponent will lose life equal to the total number of creatures they control. Then we destroy all creatures. Now we have Victimize. We're going to choose 2 target creatures in our graveyard. Then we sacrifice a creature. Then if we did, we get to return the chosen cards back to the battlefield tapped. Now we have Patriarch's Bidding. Each player will choose a creature type. Then each player will return all creatures of the chosen type from their graveyard back to the battlefield. Of course, we're going to choose Wraith. And we're probably going to return the most amount of that type because all of our opponents probably aren't going to be on some kind of tribal theme. So we're going to return the most amount of creatures most of the time. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. There's only 3. First up, we have Leyline of the Void. All the ley lines have a very unique ability where if you start the game with the ley line in your opening hand, you can put it on the battlefield from your hand. But if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, that card is now exiled. Now we have Call the Ring. Every single upkeep, the ring will tempt us. This is going to synergize very well with our Wraith creatures. And then whenever we choose a creature to be our ring bearer, we can pay 2 life. If we did, we get to draw a card. Now we have Kindred Discovery. When this enters the battlefield, we get to choose a creature type. We're going to choose Wraith. Whenever a creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to draw a card. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. Of course, we have Soul Ring. We have our Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, Talisman of Dominance as our mana rocks. Now we have some cost reducers. So we have Jet Medallion, Sapphire Medallion. Of course, we are playing the One Ring. This is a indestructible artifact. When you cast this, you will gain protection from everything until your next turn. And then every single upkeep, you're going to lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. When you activate it, you put a burden counter on the One Ring. Then you'll draw a card for each burden counter that's on it. Now we have another win condition, just in case we need it. We have Helm of Obedience. You're going to pay X mana, activate this. Target opponent will mill a card. You're going to repeat this process until they have put X number of cards into their graveyard or a creature card, whichever happens first. But because no cards are being put into your opponent's graveyard, they're going to mill their entire library. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very simple land base. We have our command tower, our polluted delta, so we can go get any island or swamp card. We have mirrored landscape, so we can go get 2 basic lands and put them on the battlefield. We have evolving wilds and terramorphic expanse and vibrant cityscape to go get any basic land and put it on the battlefield. Of course, we have watery grave and fetid pools as the fetchable lands with polluted delta. Fetid pools also has cycling, so if we don't need this, we can pay 2 generic mana, discard it, then we get to draw a card. Now we have Temple of Deceit. When this enters the battlefield, we get to scry 1. Now we have Underground River. This will tap for a colorless mana, but you can add blue or black, but it'll deal 1 damage to you. Or Karoo Land with Dimir Aqueduct. This will enter the battlefield tapped, but when it enters, we also have to return a land we control back to our hand. Now we have Tainted Isle. This will tap for a colorless mana, but it'll tap for a blue or black unless you control a swamp. Now we have Shipwreck Marsh. This will enter tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Now we have some cycling lands. So we have Barrenmoor and Lonely Sandbar. For 1 blue or 1 black, you can discard it to draw a card. Now we have Soulstone Sanctuary. This is a really fun land. For 4 generic mana, when you activate this, it'll become a 3/3 creature with vigilance and all creature types. So it'll be a wraith, it'll be a hippo, it'll be whatever creature you need it to be. Now we have Rogue's Passage, because we want to deal combat damage with our Ring Bearer or our commander. For 4 generic mana, target creature cannot be blocked that turn. Now we have Rivendell. This will enter tapped unless you control a legendary creature, but we can pay 1 generic and 1 blue. We get to scry 2, but only if we control a legendary creature. Now we have Barad-dûr. This will enter tapped unless we control a legendary creature. If a creature died that turn, we can pay 1 black and then double X. Then we get to amass Orcs X. We have 8 snow-covered islands and 8 snow-covered swamps. And that was the Commander deck tech for the Lord of the Nazgul. I really hope you guys enjoyed this Lord of the Rings themed Nazgul type build. It's really fun. If you guys have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll leave the link to the Moxfield deck list in the comments below like always. And until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos, and I'll see you in the next one.